Aren't you tired of listening to sports shows with all the woke bullshit? So are we. This is Patriot Sports Radio.
Patriot Sports Radio.
Fed up with the national talking heads and biases of mainstream sports media. If it's sports from the high school level to the pros, we're talking about it like the red-blooded Americans we are.
God bless America.
God bless America.
God bless America.
Let's do this. And now, here's Eric, Angela,
Yeah.
John, Chris, and the coach.
Wake and Rake, dude. Welcome to Patriot Sports HQ. Hey, thanks for being here. My name is Eric. I'm your host. And you can tell by the fact that the show is on the internet and running smoothly that Chris is here with me as well. We've got Angela.
Aren't
John
you about
here,
tired
dude.
of listening?
We got Big Voice Guy. Big Voice Guy's back.
We love him.
John's back. He's got the headband.
Howdy.
We got a lot going on. We got the Sweet 16 going on right now. Our good buddy Adam at AC Miller PGA is crushing it for the Plus Money Golf and the match play. Get in the Discord. They're winning over there. We have a special guest this evening. Kari Donovan, our resident NTT IndyCar guru, is with us. You can find her in-depth articles on PatriotSportsNow.com. Kari, good to see you. It's finally here. It's time.
Yes. Hello. I'm so excited. I can barely contain myself. It's here.
I can tell. Kari's writing articles for us all the time. Go check them out. Here's a fun fact I learned about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The track at IMS could hold the audience of Churchill Downs, Yankee Stadium, Rose Bowl Stadium, Vatican City, the Taj Mahal, the White House, Liberty Island, and the Roman Coliseum could all fit inside the infield. Your articles, your passion for IndyCar racing really comes through.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Doesn't that just get you excited, though? Can you imagine if you haven't been there before? And I know some of you have been, but if you haven't been there before, you have no idea. It's like a city. It's so huge, and it's every inch of it is exciting.
That's awesome. That's totally crazy. I love it.
You have to go.
I've never been. I do have to, for real. Definitely.
Yeah, I've been to the Michigan Speedway and I've been to Joliet. I've never been to Indianapolis. Heavy Steps is here. How's it going, buddy? He's out there winning.
Hey, Heavy.
Yeah, that's a real pilgrimage. Have you been there, Kari? And how many times have you been there?
To the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Yeah.
I have been 40 plus times.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So do you give tours when you're there? It sounds like you might give tours when you're there.
Yes, I will. Right. So I will give tours. But so I grew up going to the race. So I've been going to the race since I was a kid and can even remember. I don't know. My dad is from Indianapolis and he grew up going to the race. And so it was a big thing. And then I've just continued on going. It's a bit of an obsession for me. And last year was like the most incredible thing. I actually got to go and hang out in the media center. And Roger Penske, who, by the way, is a medal. Yeah, he's a Medal of Freedom. He's a Medal of Freedom recipient. President Trump gave him a Medal of Freedom for the work at the Indy 500. He made the media center. It's like gourmet. Imagine this gourmet food 24/7. They just keep bringing it in. Gourmet drinks, coffee, ice cream pops, candy. It's incredible. It has like lockers for your cameras. And I'm always lugging all these huge cameras around. It's like a vacation. It makes me crazy. I was already excited about it. And then I get to go sit in the media center. Are you kidding? It's like, I told Mr. Penske, I said, Mr. Penske, I really appreciate what you did here in this media center. It is like so awesome. But the only thing I'm concerned about is we have to keep IndyCar Americana. And so I'm really grateful that you guys let me write about this stuff because I want to get Americans excited about IndyCar.
Your articles are fabulous. I can tell you what, Coach is really sad that he missed this episode. We are already into food talk, which is great.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, is there anything more American than motorsports? It's standing next to the wall as cars go past you 3 feet away at 200 miles an hour is quite an experience. It's something I think everybody should do.
Yeah.
I've never jumped out of a plane. I'm afraid to, but I think that's similar.
Well, I'll tell you, last year, so the first time that I get to go use the media pass, and they gave me, I mean, are these guys crazy or what? They give me one of those photo vests. So I'm like a photo dude with my official photo vest. Okay. They let me go into the turns with my camera. I'm like, what? This is, I can't believe it. I can't believe that I get to do this. And standing that close to those cars, yeah, I almost wanted to throw up. It's as close as I've ever been. It was awesome.
That's fabulous. Love that.
So
Love
how long have you been covering racing like this? It seems like it's been a while. You really know your stuff.
Well, so I've been, of course, like kind of micro blogging, I guess, about it. But last year was really the first time that I said, that's it. I want to cover IndyCar because I really feel like we're going to lose the IndyCar to the leftists, to the woke mob, if we don't get more Americans involved in this sport. So it was, I've just been, this is just my second year doing it, my second season. But I've
Wow.
been, I've been writing about it like in my social media for as long as I've had social media.
Yeah, it's clearly an interest. So we've got the first race on April 2nd in Texas, and then the season runs through September 10th. The race
Mhm.
in Wisconsin at Road Americas on June 18th. Maybe we got to take a field trip up there. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, I haven't been to that race.
I grew up going to that track. So like your love
Oh,
for
yeah.
Indy is like my love for Road America. And like and it
Oh,
runs so deep. And I grew up going there when I was a kid. And
yeah.
so I have just a major affinity for what a cool place it is. And you should totally go. You would love it. It's
I
really, really
love it.
something. It's
I love
beautiful too.
Wisconsin has the fly-in. It's the Oshkosh, right? Oshkosh fly-in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think of Wisconsin because I grew up in Michigan, by the way. So as a place where you need some speed. Yeah, it's a good place. It's like speedy, racy. I want to come to that race now. Well, and the other thing is, Angela, your passion, like you said for me about IndyCar for me, like I want to see that now through your eyes, right?
Right. Oh my gosh.
What are you excited? What are you excited about? What do you love? And it helps, I think, to have a person who's excited about it because otherwise, and how many times have you all heard this before? When people go, I don't like racing. It's just like watching cars go around in circles.
Oh
And it
no.
Right? It just, like, baffles my mind, like, "What are you talking about? The sounds, the sights, the smells, the people, the music, the cars, what do you how can you miss all that?" Well, they might need someone like you and me to take them around.
Hell to the yeah, for sure. And I know that like there's absolutely nothing like it when you're at Road America. Also, I don't know about Indy necessarily, but there's different areas you go around the track and you can nestle yourself into where like they have hairpin turns where they're like braking so hard to make the turn and then they just hammer on the accelerator and or they push the buttons. But
Right?
it's the sounds are incredible and the power is like, oh, it's so cool. Yeah.
I just joined a new Facebook group, just like Indy 500. If anybody's looking for it, I'll try to
Oh,
put a link on my Facebook page. But I was asking people in there. I said, "Hey, y'all, I want to know, like, is anybody else does this resonate with anybody else? Do you feel like the Indy 500 is Americana?" And there were a number of people who responded, "I love America because of the Indy 500, the sound of the cars." Right?
oh yeah.
Like,
That's
it raises up
awesome.
this thing like, I just want to hear those cars. And yeah, the sound it's music. It's beautiful.
It's awesome.
Heavy Step says he's been to the Indy 500.
Oh,
Pretty
nice.
cool. I've been to the Indy Truck Bash, which is a car show near the Indy 500, but
Yeah.
never the actual Indy 500 with the
Okay.
bricks and everything. Just going to a major NASCAR or IndyCar race is an experience. It's
Mhm.
viewing the races is maybe half of it. The people watching is incredible at a race.
Mhm.
You're going to get all kinds of folks in all kinds of states of mind.
Oh, yeah. And so this race coming up, this one in Texas, I haven't been to this one. I've watched it on TV. But it's quite exciting because it's, the season is kicking off. But for sure, all of those people down in Texas, they've got to love that track. And I think that this year the race has some excitement, and that's what I tried to write about for the latest article on the topic. And it's something that I want people to understand, and you all already understand, but I think it helps. I don't know too much about NASCAR, but IndyCar sometimes gets a rap for not being competitive. And again, I think it's just people who are missing. They maybe don't know what to look for, because if with any sport, when you come to it, you don't know anything of the people and the places and whatever. You don't even know what you're looking at specifically. We know because we've been watching it, but I really want people to know IndyCar is extremely competitive, even on an oval, and that's what we get on you guys are talking about a road course. Of course, Road America, which is a little different. But I want people to know, like, even those ovals, those are top athletes, and it's extremely competitive. And last year in Texas, they had, and I added it into the article. I mean, it raises up goosebumps on me how close the finish was when Joseph Newgarden, and I really just came to really like him last year, came in, and he just out of the blue, and he just takes the finish away from Scott McLaughlin. And it was just like, this is highly competitive, and it makes it so exciting. And I know NASCAR has a different kind of excitement, and I've always wanted to go to a NASCAR race. And here I am in North Carolina. I should get going to one, and I will.
Yeah. Richard Childress Racing headquarters is right down the street from you, I believe. That Newgarden, that was a last lap pass, was it not?
Yes, it was right before the finish, and he just zoomed by. And there's a video of Newgarden, and he's so excited, he's screaming, and he almost sounds like a woman because his voice is so high because he's so excited. And they're saying, Scott McLaughlin is a top competitor. I mean, he's class. He's just a world-class racer. And so he just came in and just snatched it away from him at the last minute. And Joseph Newgarden is saying, I don't know how he's going to feel. And Joseph Newgarden, by the way.
Aren't they?
Yeah, right. And so this is a little bit of this kind of Formula One-esque kind of thing, like they're teammates, but that's a little bit of a foreign thing for me because I didn't grow up hearing about teammates so much, right?
Yeah,
yes, they are teammates.
I remember, I don't know, years ago, and in the F1, I would hear about guys pulling over so their teammate could win. And that's sort of my next question. Who are the dominant drivers in Indy? Is there a large pool of drivers who can win a given race, or is it more like F1 in that there's a small group of guys who are above the rest?
So even the drivers in their post races, they'll talk about, because always the reporters, especially the foreign reporters, will always make some sort of comment about like trying to relate IndyCar to Formula One. And it's quite different, IndyCar and Formula One. And even the drivers will say, look, IndyCar, there is nothing like IndyCar. IndyCar is extremely competitive, and you don't pull over and let somebody win at the Indy 500. You put your foot down in the gas and you drive whatever track there is. But it's also the difference, and I try to remind people, we're Americans, and Americans are like, hey, we respect competition. And so there's this footage, and I really wanted to bring that out in the article as well, which is Newgarden came and took that away from Scott McLaughlin. They're still pals, and they even kind of make a little bit of a joke about it, where the NTT IndyCar guys come and say, hey, why don't you go and watch the footage from last year? What do you think? And I try to bring some of that out in the article, which is, Scott McLaughlin's probably going to that race in Texas coming up here in a couple of days with some revenge on his mind. Like, I'm going to get you, Joseph Newgarden, right? And hey, it's all fair in love and war. And if the track is there, you got to race it. You got to have respect for someone who competes. And so it's different. Formula One is different from IndyCar. IndyCar, they'll talk about sort of like team members, but it's nothing like Formula One, where you wouldn't offend your team member like that, right? There's nothing like that. IndyCar, you're gonna race, and there's this new series, the 100 Days of Indy, is coming up, and they're going to address a lot of those issues in this sort of reality series, which really brings out the individual competitiveness. Now, you asked about how many of these guys can actually win. Here's the cool thing: a lot of them. So if you have a field of 28 people, which I think it's going to be a historic number coming here in Texas, is going to have 28 competitors on the track. You're probably going to have at least, and this is just me guessing, okay? This isn't like scientific or anything. You're going to have at least.
Your guess is pretty educated, Kari.
Well, thank you. I'm going to say between 15 and 18 of them are competitive enough to win. And that's why the last race that you saw, where they all kind of they piled into each other and sort of toppled on top of each other, because some of the starts you got to be careful with that, because these guys are aggressive, they're assertive, they're competitive, and they've got winning machines underneath them. And you get them all together too close, and they're going to crash into each other.
These are open wheel vehicles.
Right, they're not going to give way to somebody. They're gonna plow through, and they are competitive, top athletes again. But they have the machinery to do it, and that's another thing that makes it so amazing, because you're looking at amazing technology, those cars. So a lot of them could win, but there are, of course, some names like Will Power, Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin are probably, those are pretty your solid leaders.
Oh yeah, I see a guy named Will Power. I'm betting on him.
Yeah, right. Will
That's
Power,
almost like Max Power when Homer Simpson changed his name to Max Power.
Yes, I love writing about Will Power. It's so funny because I'll just sometimes try to figure out how can I write about Will Power, because I just love that name.
Heavy Stuff says back in the day you could bring a cooler of beer in with you. Can you no longer do that?
No, you can. They lifted that rule. They shut it down. Here, get a cooler of beer ready, because last year they lifted the rule and allowed people to bring their coolers in. So you can go to Snake Pit, drink some beer, and have a good time.
Coming again to fill the motherfucking cooler. You can't keep us down. You can't tell us we can't bring beer into a race. That's over the line. Over the line, Smokey.
They probably figured that was a battle they didn't want to have to deal with anymore. America, fuck yeah, coming again to save the motherfucking day. Yeah, America, fuck yeah, freedom is the only way.
Terrorists, your game is through, man.
Because
now you have to answer to America.
Almost as good as your Pearl Jam impersonation. Not quite. Close.
Not quite. John, you won't shut up over there. Are you a big racing guy? Have you ever been to a race of any sort?
Just motorcycle, really. The Peoria TTs were always a common thing that we would check out as a family. Been to Sturgis, seen some flat track motorcycle race, hill climbs, been to 2 or 3 supercross races in St. Louis. Actually brushed right by Travis Pastrana at one of those. Nice. So more on the motorcycle side. My brother used to race them.
I wonder how old Travis Pastrana is now. Like, he was the man when I was a young man.
Well, now he's got to be. He's racing cars.
He is.
The last I saw.
Yep, for real.
Yeah, he raced he was in the Daytona 500.
He was.
Yeah. Are we gonna have? Do we have any sort of recreational Frankie Muniz, Travis Pastrana type guys in the Indy ranks? Is Kari still here?
I am. Okay, I'm thinking.
I didn't say your name. I like to just ask questions of 4 people and not direct it to anyone. We're like 80, 90 episodes in. I still haven't learned how to do it.
And I was hoping, hey, maybe somebody else might have an answer to that. But, I'm thinking of like, there's so many great guys. Colton Herta, Brian Herta's son, and that's really fun to watch those two, because it's father and son team, and they're very competitive. And the dad is like, sometimes I want him to slow down, and he won't. And so there's all that kind of interpersonal stuff going on. It's hard for me sometimes, because I just started, like I said, writing about it last year. And I had this dilemma, which is, in the past, I've always concentrated on like my favorite driver. And then I thought, well, now I need to be responsible to the public, and I need to represent all these different drivers and learn, there are people that I hadn't even really paid attention to. So the answer to that question is, I don't know.
Excellent.
How's that? I mean, something I don't know.
We'll find out. Will's here from Game On. He says, "Are we waking and raking?" Yeah, it's
Hey, Will.
evening though, so we might have to workshop the name. What do you think about Patriot Sports After Dark? No, that's cheesy. No, Chris kind of liked it. I think it's at least on the temporary considerations list.
It's Patriot Sports Radio on a school night.
Yep. Curfew breaking. Will says this Michigan State game it seemed like it'd been a 1-point game all night. Those two are going at it. Last I checked, UConn was absolutely destroying Arkansas. So I had that one wrong, as I typically do in, in college basketball. I'm looking at our 2023 NTT IndyCar Series season schedule here.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the shapes of the tracks. We got some interesting shapes. They're definitely not all ovals. Most are not.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing 5 streets of race, streets of Toronto,
Mhm.
streets of Nashville. Like back when I was watching IndyCar with my uncle back in the Rick Mears days, they've just
Oh,
raced
yeah.
in circles. I think I don't recall any streets of Nashville type stuff. Is this relatively new, or am I completely out of touch?
No, you're absolutely right, and I go back to the Rick Mears days too. He was one of my favorites. I think I had a big, huge crush on him when I was a little girl. I don't know when they started adding in the road course, but I think that really probably sort of started coming in with Penske. And some of the old fans, you might remember this. Do you remember when there was a split and Roger Penske pounded off and started up his own series? And there was the IMS, the IndyCar, or IMS, I think it was called IndyCar, right? I mean, I can't remember.
It was
going back.
sponsored by some corporation. One of them was.
Yeah, so there was like Penske and then the Motor Speedway, Indy Motor Speedway, and there was quite a dilemma. And my family in Indianapolis, old school IndyCar, were very resentful of Penske because he had this sort of more corporate. He was trying to introduce Formula One, and people were like, "No, keep it American, right?" So there was a split, but then Penske he got IndyCar. He is the owner of IndyCar, and I want to say it's probably his influence, but I don't know that. It could have come in before. I took a little bit of a break for a couple of years, but I'm going to guess it's Penske's influence, and it's fairly recent to have road courses, because when you go and you listen to the interviews, and it's so cool to be on the media site. I mean, I'm on the media site with like NBC. Okay, that's crazy. I'm telling you, it's so crazy. How do they let
You know
me
way
in
more than these NBC assholes, Carrie. Don't sell yourself short.
Oh, thank you. So, but I'm like, how can I be in this place with NBC? Okay, that's just crazy. But they show you these interviews, and in the interviews, the drivers will always differentiate between like, well, I came up in dirt roads. Well, I came up in ovals. Well, and it's really interesting to me because I thought the same thing. Like, when did they add all these different road courses, street courses, and of course they've always had the ovals. I don't know, but it's within the last, I'm going to say, a few years. I'll look it up. That's a good article. You asked great
Yeah.
questions.
Oh, thank you. This Nashville track, I mean, it looks kind of like when Air Force dudes try to draw a dick in the sky. It's just a long,
Right?
it's just a long streak and then a circle at the end.
It's
Is
really
that
kind of interesting.
Like a drag race, and then they go around a roundabout and they do another drag race.
It's right. We're going to be dick tracked to me now. Thanks a lot, Eric.
That's going to be a one to watch. We'll answer that question when we watch it.
We'll find out what sort of
We will.
performance they have down there in Nashville.
Mhm.
There's 2 completely circular races at Iowa race 1 and race 2 days in a row, July 22nd and 23rd. What's that about?
Yeah, it's like they do some really funky things that are very just to bring the interest to the driver. Like, is it a lottery? How many times are they going to have to qualify? I don't remember watching that race last year. I don't think I covered that one.
Iowa. Interesting.
Iowa.
Barber
Mhm.
Motorsports Park. The 107th Indianapolis 500. That almost looks like a square. We know it is not. Road America looks really cool. It looks like there's a lot of different places you could sit and get a cool view. I don't know how many turns there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't count turns. It's too small. But the schedule looks really interesting. I mean, you have to have a wide range of guys who are going to win these races because it's a bunch of different skill sets. If you're driving, an oval like Texas or something like the streets of St. Petersburg or the streets of Detroit. I mean, how many guys are murdered every year when they race the streets of Detroit?
Right. Yeah, and I remember when they started that. That was a Formula One. Those were Formula One cars they were bringing in when they did the streets of Detroit. And unfortunately, yeah, the city went kind of kaputs, but it's in a safe area, and they really bring in a lot of security. So it's very safe. We used to go down there as kids and run around in the area, and it was cool.
I'm not seeing. What do you got?
Oh, I was going to say there are, as far as like the different skill set, and just listening to the drivers and their interviews, and they'll talk about like where they came from and what their experiences to get them into IndyCar. And none of them say, "Hey, I just got in ovals and drove around in circles." They all have some sort of really interesting background, like the foreign guys especially. I always love, because I'm doing this Americana thing. I love it when we get a Formula One guy who says, "I'm not going back to Formula One. I like IndyCar," because they don't feel like they can be competitive. Sometimes they say, and so you've got guys like I'm trying to think of who was it who made the comment about it being they don't want to go back to Formula One. I think it was Felix Rosenquist, maybe. It was one of the foreign guys. So yeah, they've got experience. You've got midget drivers, you've got stock car drivers, NASCAR, you've got just pure IndyCar dudes, and they're all on there. And it's really an interesting group of guys.
Yeah, just all kinds of. I mean, I guess NASCAR is getting like that too. You're seeing guys from all different walks of life.
Are you? Yeah.
But
it's not just your regular rednecks.
I'm not seeing John's Streets of Chicago race on this schedule. Is that under construction in a couple years? What is that? Scrapped? What are they doing with the Chicago race? The streets of, or the Chicago Loop, I guess is what they'll call it.
Huh. The Chicago race isn't on there?
I didn't see it either. I don't know if it was this year. Or it might have been NASCAR for all I know.
Oh, was that a NASCAR deal?
We talked about it and how much that's going to be a mess about 6 months ago, I think. Yeah.
Is there any time of day where it's okay to just block off the Chicago Loop?
Not really, no. They just started a huge project there too, right downtown. So that's going to be a huge nightmare.
Oh, that should go smoothly.
Yeah, the Loop is honestly the last place. That's like if you were to make Cruising USA and you want to make the hardest level, you'd put it in the Chicago Loop.
Looks like a NASCAR race from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think there was something about them talking last year about a Chicago race, though. But I don't. It was an IndyCar.
By me.
Huh. Yeah, I don't see it.
Drive right by Soldier Field, where the Bears will eventually stop playing football.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was at one time, 2008, IndyCar was in Chicago. I just called it up. Like, when was the last time? I don't know if that's the last time, but they were there. They were definitely there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I don't think it's on the schedule this year. You're right.
Is the Milwaukee Mile still a thing? I've been to an IndyCar race there. I'm wondering if the Milwaukee Mile is even still something that exists. It says here it's the oldest operating motor speedway in the world, hosting at least one auto race every year since 1903, except during U.S. involvement in World War II. It operated as a dirt track until it was paved in 1954. Wow.
They race horses on it to begin with?
We got some... 1903. What kind of cars are you racing in 1903?
I'm trying to think of when Henry Ford rolled
When
out
did
the
Henry
car.
Ford
do his
Yeah.
thing?
Because
Bob,
it
be
says
careful
at
when you
least
change
one.
that wheel. Don't get a splinter.
Yeah.
It says at least one auto race. We just learned a cool fact about the Milwaukee Mile.
Yeah,
There's
the
been
steam engine.
it's the oldest operating motor speedway in the world. Wow. At least one auto race there every year since 1903. 34,000 seating capacity. Not bad. Yeah, that's where I went and my uncle got me in the pits, met Rick Mears, got a fucking autograph Pennzoil hat. I don't know where that went, but wish I still had it.
And Rick Mears, isn't he so handsome? I love Rick Mears.
Question.
Yep. That's what 7-year-old me thought. I was like, man, that man, he is stunning.
Stunning.
I hope
Isn't
when I
he
grow
his-
and develop, I have a chiseled jaw like Rick Mears.
I mean, he does. He's like this California racer dude. Oh, I just think he's so laid back and chill. And then he's like this racy speeder. Oh, I love him. I can't take it. I met him one time just walking across the back in the area of the cold pits where they bring the trucks in for the drivers and they set up like little hospitality tables and stuff. And he was just walking, who knows, probably to a truck someplace. And I was walking and I asked him, hey, can I get an autograph? And I thought, people stop him all the time, I'm sure. And he was so nice and he signed a hat and we kept walking. That was my big interaction with Rick Mears.
Top shelf guy. He's the Keanu Reeves of the racing world. He's got time for everybody. What a life these guys are living. They're just in private jets all the time, going to various races, infinite money. I mean, where do they all live in a certain area? I suppose not. Like the NASCAR drivers, a lot of them live in the Carolinas. But I suppose IndyCar drivers are more spread out. You can have multiple.
Yeah, they live all over. They live all over, but they come in for the race season.
It's gotta be wild. 74 jets landing in Omaha.
And what's hard for them that they talk about is different from NASCAR, where NASCAR, is there a race every week in NASCAR?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think they take weeks off.
Yeah, one of the problems that they have is in between races. And I can imagine, I was thinking of this last year, I can imagine, I got a little testosterone. I like to drive fast. But I can imagine you get your headspace in, like, I'm going to go racing, and then you're off for a couple of weeks. And so they were trying to get some of the races pulled in so that the season was a little bit more consistent, so that they wouldn't have these like long periods of time in between racing. So that's one thing with the IndyCar that really it drives them crazy, because they just want to get back in the car and start racing again. And you get your setup, your adrenaline's going, you get your mindset, you get in your space, and then the race is over within a few hours, and then you could have weeks off. And especially like Helio Castroneves, he talks about that a lot. He might have some ADD, I think, that poor guy, because he's just kind of like, what am I supposed to do with all of this time? And so they'll travel around a bit with the downtime. So I think that they're just restless souls,
Yeah, it takes a certain kind of dude, right?
Yeah.
I think you're muted.
So you couldn't take like
You're muted.
Oh yeah, you're muted.
well, it's the sport, so you couldn't take like a quarterback, right? Play him on Saturday and then wait 3 weeks and play him again, and then wait 2 weeks and play him again. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
You guys, once you're in the season, you're in the zone. You don't
it.
want to jump in and out of that.
Yeah, you
I
got
don't
your
like that at
routine.
all. Yeah.
It's Sunday, it's race day. It's Monday, it's travel day. It's Wednesday, it's whatever day. And then Sunday is race day again. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
what do you mean? It's day off? I got to go golf? What do you mean? I want to go 200 goddamn mile an hour.
Yeah, so they do all kinds of things, and it adds a little interest to this. Some of them do, like John, motorsport, motorcycles. They'll go try to do some other types of racing to fill in the time. There's probably they're probably not allowed to do things where they can't really hurt each other during that part of the season, or hurt themselves. But yeah, it really plays on them. So they'll have a lot of, for example, you'll see it in this 100 days till Indy show that there's a lot of pranks going on. There's a lot of things over bicycles, motorcycles. There's a lot of different camaraderie and interactions because they have this like downtime, and they're going crazy because they want to be like that quarterback, jump in, this is my game day, this is my thing.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that adds a little something to the sport too.
It's I think even more so than maybe not the NFL or the NHL. I think it's an adrenaline thing, and you can't take too much time off, or else you will go nuts or drink too much or do
Mhm.
cocaine or something. You need something to get to 10. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
these
they
guys-
do.
I've watched so many. Brings me back to when I was younger, but watched so many videos of these guys that race, and there is like a very common thread. I remember I was watching a lot of Jackass videos, and I was watching a lot of like Travis Pastrana, Nitro Circus. They are the same person with a different skill set. Like just these crazy kind of guys that just need something to get them to a 10 each day. And if you tell them they can't race for 3 weeks, motorcycle, like they'll just get their little pit bike and they'll do backyard races or take it off a jump or snap their arm or something like that.
Yeah. You can't go on Raging Bull and then have to ride the teacups 2 times
Right.
before you go back on Raging Bull.
Yeah,
It's just not gonna. It's gonna mess up your mindset. Do these
Yeah,
it's
guys
almost
have?
like an addict personality, to be honest.
Oh
Yeah, exactly.
Adrenaline. Oh yeah.
Like Point Break, bro.
I was watching that today.
You gotta have it. The original or the remake?
The original. Come on.
Okay.
Gary Busey all the way.
Right on.
Oh man, the lawnmower scene was very tense. I suppose these guys are a big fraternity, and only they understand the need for speed that they have. Like they can't just talk to other regular folks about how bad they want to drive 200 miles an hour. So I
Well, they
suppose in these
do.
off
That's what they-
times they sort of bond.
And they do, and they do, yeah. And they know, like their fans, they love their fans that get them. Yeah. Who know? Okay, he's jonesing right now for some speed. There are a couple times last year where they'll bring all the drivers in, and they have a day where the drivers have to come in and answer the press questions. And they
I'm sure
set it
that's
up in a
fun.
big room, and they just like pile them through like a parade. And these guys, some of them are so down to earth and cool, and they like just like rapping with you and telling you stuff. But you can tell the guy you can tell the guy who's just like, look, he's itching, his adrenaline's going. He just had a practice lap or something. Now he's coming in and he's snapping at your head when you're asking him like, what's your favorite color? Like what do you like to eat or drink?
Checker.
And
Mhm.
yeah, and sometimes they get on each other's nerves, and then they're like, you gotta break them apart, and because somebody's torqued someone off. So lots of interesting things. But there was one guy who was really picked on last year, Romain Grosjean. He was really picked on a lot because he kind of has this sort of lofty attitude, and he really explained it in an interview, and I think you guys will appreciate this. And he said, look, this is really hard for me. And he also has Formula One experience. And he said, this is really hard for me to go from being in a race mindset to having downtime, and I have to focus on something. So I kind of go into my head and I focus on and so some people are saying he's very aloof, and the media is like beating him up, and I'm like, how can you beat up a guy that you're going to go watch racing anyway? I'm never doing that, dudes, ever, never, ever, ever. But that was his way of dealing with it. Was like, one guy's talking about partying and drinking. He's like really young, like 20 years old. And this guy has got a girlfriend, and he's trying to be responsible. And he said, basically, he just like checks out a little bit because he cannot handle the just the buildup of testosterone that he wants to race. And he comes off as aloof, and the media trashes him. Oh, it was horrible to watch. Watch for him. I'm going to be nice to him in my media. You'll see.
He's just trying to offset all the hype. That's all.
Yeah.
Do these guys have a hard time walking away? Do they race a couple more years after they probably should have retired because they know they're not going to find this anywhere else?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a common thing they talk about too, and even Rick Mears talked about that. He made a movie last year with the other, 4-time winners, and, Helio is going for his 5th, right? He's going for his 5th win. He's the only one who's in the group of 4 that can go on to 5, but like Rick Mears was saying in this movie, they were talking about the 4-time winners. AJ Foyt, you look at him, that guy was going to go, he would be racing now if you could squeeze him into a car, but he gained so much weight, he got older, right? And then he would be, but they had to drag him out and tell him. And I watched some of that. That was in our generation. You might have seen some of it, right? He did not want to give it up, and they did not want to let him, his family did not want to let him keep racing. And then Rick Mears said, one day I said, this is as far as you're going to get. It's never going to be as good as it was. No. And he just stopped, right?
Yeah, 'cause he was the man when he was, in his prime. Didn't he try to jump in a NASCAR too? He did a couple NASCAR races, maybe a Coca-Cola 600 or something. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. I don't know. IndyCar, some of those IndyCar guys will do the 500 and then fly down to Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600.
Yep.
That's crazy.
I'm looking up if Rick Mears ever did NASCAR, because
no, Foyt, I meant. I think he drove NASCAR.
Foyt, yeah, Foyt was all over the place. Foyt, if it has wheels on it, Foyt's gonna try to race it. That guy, yeah, he did all kinds of stuff. He did USAC, he did NASCAR. He definitely, I think he still has something to do with a NASCAR. Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's a lifestyle. It chooses you, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. So it's April 2nd. Is that at noon? Do they start the races at noon? Like
they're starting. Yeah, and they just run a press release. I think their new time. They're saying that all of their races, I believe, are going to start at 11, and they have something like be on the track at 10:30.
Oh, okay.
For 11 o'clock Sunday. And again, that's another Penske thing where he's really cleaning it up from like the good old boys just racing around, whenever. Like, we're gonna have it be the same time. Every race is gonna be the same time, 11 o'clock.
Corporate. What is this St. Petersburg race that took place on March 5th? Is that like an exhibition type deal?
Yeah, no, that was actually the first. That was the first race, was the St. Petersburg.
Mm-hmm. What's I see a 3-week gap between that. Then we have a race on the 2nd, and then we don't have another one until the 16th. These guys are going to go crazy.
Yeah. So do we have to have some? I think we have to have some empathy for them. And I'm always surprised as a journalist, how many sports writers, and you guys know this happens in every sport though, right? You get people who are covering the sport and they just want to beat up on the players, whatever the sport is. And I can't believe that there are people who would be covering IndyCar and not have some compassion for these guys with this downtime. To me, is huge. I don't know how they get over it. But yes, so you see that? It's kind of weird, huh?
Yeah. So who's going to win this Texas race? We're not doing our job if we don't ask you that, because there's no way we're not betting on IndyCar, right? We have an IndyCar person.
Right. Well, I mean, if I had to bet, now I really like Joseph Newgarden, and he did a great job last year. And he did win the Texas race last year, but I think Scott McLaughlin is, because that was a burn, it was a friendly burn, and it's competition, so you got to accept it. But I think Scott McLaughlin is the one to watch.
I'm taking McLaughlin with the revenge angle. I love a revenge angle. And then Will Power, just because his name's Will Power.
And he's very racy, so Will Power is a good choice.
I smell a parlay coming in.
Yep, the Penske parlay. That's what we're doing.
Connor Daly, I think, is going to have a good year. He was doing some interesting things last year. He's got a great racy attitude. Marcus Arison has a great car. He's a good dude. I mean, I like with Scott Dixon. He's a little bit older guy, lots of great experience. Helio Castroneves, I think, wants to quit. I think he wants to make this his last year, and he really wants to have a good year. He wanted to have a good year last year, and he just kept getting lots of frustrating things. So numbers of people to watch, but I'm going to go with Scott McLaughlin.
Me too. I like it. If Helio had a good season last year, do you think he would have retired?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so we should watch for him in Indy. I assume he's going to pour all of his effort into winning the Indy 500.
Yes, and that is the thing. As much as all of these other races mean something to each one of them, and all of the races are great in different way. Of course, the number one race in the minds of a lot of these guys, and I love it when the foreign guys say, I want to come to Indy and win the Indy 500. It's what I wanted when I was a little boy watching Formula One. I wanted to come to the Indy 500. There's actually a poll going on right now on what is the world's greatest race, and the Indy 500 is winning. So yeah,
Suck it, Daytona.
Right. Now, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from anybody's favorite race or anything, but the Indy 500 is the most desired victory out there, I think. And the numbers of these drivers are saying so. So
you get to kiss bricks and chug milk. What's up with the milk?
Yeah,
what's that about?
The milk started sometime in like the 50s. Some guy was thirsty and they just gave him a thing of milk. And here's the thing about the Indy 500, which is
grandpa thing.
Right.
It's back when before dairy intolerances and everything, it was just like, well, it's what we did. We drank milk.
Right.
Yeah. We drank milk and we asked people if they were some kind of wise guy.
It's all we had.
And then they pour it on themselves, and then they come up for an interview, and they smell like you know what. But this is the weirdest thing about Indy, and it's probably the same thing in other sports. Like you've got the Super Bowl and the other big iconic sports is all of these little traditions. And so there are people who will just geek out all year long in these Facebook groups. You can see them talking about every single little tradition, right? And everybody's got to know all of the history of every single little tradition. And you get these old guys who are sitting around in their overalls, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I know the best thing about that tradition, the milk and the guy, and that came from this dairy and that dairy. And I kind of
back in my day, you kissed the bricks, gave him a little tongue.
Right. And I love those kinds of stories, but when it's time to race, dude, I don't want to know anything about the milk or nothing else. I just want to see some racing. But yeah, I guess that's the story that I've always heard about the milk.
I know one guy one year drank orange juice instead, and people lost their fucking mind.
They did. They don't like messing around with the traditions.
Yep. Because his family owned orchards or something like that. Yep. He was somehow connected to oranges, and they weren't with it. Yeah, you're right. Baseball's like that too. Very,
and hockey.
Very
yeah.
You got your traditions. So last year,
hockey is borderline crazy though.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
How two guys will sit there and just not get off the ice after warm-ups because like the second last one off the ice is a pussy or something.
That was awesome.
I don't even understand I don't know what icing is. I definitely can't understand that rule.
I understand the ice thing. Like, don't get off the ice, then don't get off the ice. I'm not getting off the ice. No way.
Man, it's like they probably just sit in the locker room and put lit cigarettes on their arms and do all that middle school shit to see who's tougher.
Well, so hey, I got to tell you this thing about a tradition. Like last year, there's this tradition of this balloon lift where they have a tent and it's filled up with all these balloons, and it's a very iconic picture. Probably you've seen it, even if you've never cared about the Indy 500, where they lift up this tent and hundreds of thousands of balloons go up, right? And so the greenies, the leftists, didn't want the balloons because of the plastic and the rubber and the thing. And Roger Penske gave in. The crowd, the fans were so mad at him that he allowed them to screw with one of the very important traditions. But what Roger Penske did, I give him credit for this, is he had one of the most incredible flyovers. So he had 2 flyovers. He had this amazing stealthy flyover. And then he's like, oh yeah, you like that? Here, bang. And that is so much like Roger Penske. The flyover that he had shook the entire arena. It was incredible. And that was in place of the balloon lift. So it was like he gave up something, but he added something else because he knows you don't mess. And they talk about it. They talk about you don't mess with the traditions, and that's for any sport though, right? It just gives us comfort about our sports.
Yeah, sports traditions are comfort food, is what they are.
Yeah.
You don't want to be releasing a bunch of balloons. You'll catch some hellfire missiles right at the track. You don't want anything to do with that. Stay away from balloons. How have these nerds not come up with a biodegradable balloon yet?
Right? To keep these leftists quiet. I don't know.
What are we doing?
Like, what is their problem with the balloons? But if anybody's interested, go look up like second flyover Indy 500. And it was another one of those moments that
Freedom Chub.
Yeah, it was the Thunderbirds that flew over, and it was one of those moments where it's like your heart will burst with American pride at the sound, the smell, and the sight of these planes, bringing this flyover to start the Indy 500. And it was really one of Roger Penske's, I think, brilliant moves to make everyone happy and to give something like that you never would have expected. No one knew he was doing it until the day of when he announced it. And of course, everyone's like, what about the balloons? What about the balloons?
We traded the balloons for about
10,000
gallons of fuel.
Right. I was going to say that. Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you what, if I go to a baseball game and they don't do the 7th inning stretch, and if I'm at a Brewers game and we don't bring out the barrel, roll out the barrel.
We're not racing sausages.
No.
Right? Yeah, I got you.
Tradition.
Yep.
Well, it's just not complete otherwise.
Nope. Exactly. Well, I'm out of questions. What else do we need to know about this upcoming season and or the Texas race?
Well, hey, so I can share with you. I was on a podcast with a guy. We were talking about football. His name's Liberty Warrior, and he said, "Can you come on, start talking to me about what you think about sports and why is it important?" Because I started rapping with him and telling him I think we need to restore all sports, football, baseball. We need to bring it all back, Americana, all of our traditions, and tell people don't mess with any of our traditions, and none of them. Everyone leave us alone and let us enjoy all of our sports. And this guy, he didn't realize how emotional he was about it. He literally, in the podcast, as we're talking, started crying. He's a football player. He played football in high school and college, and he was about ready to go professional. But like he said, he can't watch some of the sports because of the commentary. He's literally let himself be shut out from his own sport, football, which he loves. And he said, and it's like, I didn't realize how much of it meant to me and how much time I spend with my friends and how much I want to share these things with my son. And I said, that's it. Right. And I said, that's it. This inspires me, my sports IndyCar, but I encourage everybody in all of their sports, whatever the sport is that you like, motorcycle racing, football, baseball, cricket, I don't care what it is. We all need to stand up and say, these are our sports and our traditions and our things that we want and we demand that we have them. We're Americans, we deserve them. And that's why I'm really excited. And thank you guys for letting me bring this stuff to your platform, because it's fun for me. It's thrilling for me. I love it. But I hope to inspire other people that if they haven't gotten a sport, maybe. Are there people out there that don't have any sport at all? Maybe some. That they find, right? That they find something. And with all these different races and teams and things that are going on in their state, they can fall in love with something. Road America, Indy 500, whatever state it is, whatever sport. And so that's, I think, a really important topic. And it's a service to people to remind them that the sports are very important in the American fabric of our country.
Totally. And
right?
I think as silly as it may seem, the traditions that go along with it aren't just silly traditions. I mean, if you think back to what are some of the oldest traditions, you look at European soccer, you look at baseball. Every team, most teams have a song. The Chicago teams pretty much all have a song. It was a way to get community together, to have something in common, to have something to root for. And traditions are something that help everybody get together and sing whatever, because there is no school song or anything that is normal. So you're all getting together singing the weirdest words you've ever heard in your life.
Right.
And honestly, you could be in a bar punching somebody, and then Steve Goodman's Go Cubs Go comes on, and it's like, well, we're going to put this on pause because we've got bigger things right now.
Right.
And I think whether it's raising balloons, whatever it is, it brings people together. It puts smiles on faces. It adds to the pageantry. Even you think Kentucky Derby, the walk-up song, what's going on because of this shared cultural tradition. And when we look at American culture, a lot of times these days we like to look at what's negative about it. But when you look at sports and you look at some college's fat dog that runs out with them every time, it's these things that harken back to a time when we were together as a country, and we were positive, and we weren't nitpicking every single thing that we've ever done wrong.
Yeah. Technology has isolated us from each other, and it's doing its best to isolate us from each other. And sports is a common thing we can all band together over and feel that community
face to face. Yeah. Like
we celebrate diversity, difference so fucking much that now we're so goddamn different. Now none of us can get along. Back when we could just go to sports, it didn't matter what your politics were, your religion. You go into the stadium or go over to your buddy's house, it all went out the window because we all had one goal, and that was win on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even
we've lost that.
Something I've always really liked, and this is going to sound weird, but going to a sporting event and they play another country's national anthem. I always thought that was cool too, because we're all here just to watch a hockey game. I don't care they're playing "Oh Canada." I'll sing along with it. We're having a good time, and there is something awesome about bringing all those cultures together and seeing how some other country did it, and then they're doing same thing that we're doing, but just in a different way.
Anything in America that you can go to and get a group of people, a mass group of people cheering or rooting or wanting the same thing is amazing.
That 100th point that gives you the Dunkin' Donut
because we've hired officers and corporations to come in and make sure that we all know how different we are and how we shouldn't like each other.
Yep.
We shouldn't like each other's ideas.
Nope.
Yeah.
This is what we've done. So if we can come back and start looking at some similarities that we have as a race, a human race, when I say that. And sometimes you can achieve that in a sports stadium. Mm-hmm. You can achieve that at Game 6 at Miller Park.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Nobody knew who was a liberal, who was a Republican, and nobody cared who was black, who was white. We were one voice. It was loud, and we did not like men we shot. I'm just
there was a dude with he had the popcorn. He got the big expensive popcorn in the plastic box. He had it on his head. It was a riot. It was so much fun, and probably Democrats in there.
And to be honest, those silly traditions are because everybody can go and watch a game, and that's great. But the cup snakes at Wrigley Field, and then how long could we get the cup snake before security came, and then somebody got escorted out. Those are the things that it's like, we're here for the game, but also let's have some fun while we're at it. Let's not be dicks. And that's in the bleachers at Wrigley Field,
right?
And then they get caught, and then they give them a fake name like Ligma Balls, and it just takes on a life of its own. That's just fan tradition. And then it starts all the signs, free Ligma.
Bob, my balls itch.
Like those are the things that you walk away and you tell years later. I was at that game. They popped Ligma.
I was at the Cubs Sox game when the guy poured pesticide down the wall and killed the ivy. That's the only time I'd been there. It was not me, but that was a rough experience. I hope they've made that place nicer since I was there in the early 2000s.
Eek.
Well,
yeah, Cubs Sox games are always a little bit interesting. I've been to Cubs Cards. I've been to Cubs Sox. Yeah. Let me just say, nobody has a high opinion of Cub fans. They all think we're just idiots that just show up, and there's a lot of those people.
That's what they do here anyway. Yep, they come up here. They call it Wrigley North. They act like jerks.
Yeah.
They do.
They do.
not
The only
right.
way to defeat that is to beat the Cubs every single time. That's the only way they'll go away.
Bernie down that slide.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bernie slide. Yep. Well, we're at an hour. We're off into baseball. I think we can wrap the thing up. Thank the people. Thank the Kari. All that stuff. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Oh, you know what? Do we have an underdog code? We do have an underdog code for PSR. Yes. Use code PSR on underdogfantasy.com. Get 100% match on your deposit up to $100. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kari. Follow us on Patriots Pod. We'll be back at this same time next Thursday. Join the Discord. Make sure you like and subscribe. Go check out Kari's work on patriotsportsnow.com. And if you're feeling political, she's also publishing articles over at republicbrief.com and frontlineamerica.com. What else are you doing? Where can the people find you on the social medias? You're just doing stuff all the time.
I am. I'm doing stuff all the time because I'm one of those kinds of people, like, if I sit down and don't do anything, I don't know, I'm going to grow old. I won't be able to get to 8,500. It keeps me going. I've got to keep moving. That's pretty much it. Republic Brief and frontlineamerica.com and Patriot Sports Now. I put the S in the wrong place all the time because I'm dyslexic. I'm a little goofball, but I'm excited about this race season, and thank you so much for letting me come here to talk about it and put my articles up. I know you guys have a lot of other things to talk about, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to racing season. I've been talking about this for a while. Like, hey, we got to get Kari on before that first IndyCar race. So we'll definitely get you back on to talk more about racing because you sure love to do it.
Yes, I do. Anytime. And thanks. I want to listen to more baseball stuff too and motorcycle racing. I love it.
Beautiful. See, this is how the community builds.
Yes.
Yeah, we got a new quarterback on our team that we have that you're a fan of, Jordan Love. He's our guy now.
Oh yeah, totally.
TBD.
So we'll do all kinds of. Once training camp starts, it's going to be Summer of Love all over the place. You're going to be so sick of hearing Summer of Love by July.
Love fest.
I always, because I'm a mom of a football player, so I use football references all the time in my political writing, and I really should know more about what I'm talking about, but that's a secret. Don't tell anybody. Thank you.
Hey, it's passable. People believe it. All right. Till next time. Be good to each other. Chris, kick the outro music.
To sports shows with all the...
Nope, not that one. Yep. Nope. No, that was it.
You've been listening to Patriot Sports Radio. If you're sick of all the national talking heads and biases of mainstream sports media, like we are, this show is for you. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. For more content and merch, hit up www.patriotsportsnow.com. Find us on Twitter at PatriotsPod, on Instagram and Facebook at Patriot Sports Now, and on Getter, Rumble, and YouTube at Patriot Sports. Take care, and we'll see you next time.